Okay, good morning, students. I have switched on the recording and I hope to make a recording of the play that we are going to discuss today, or our class based on the play that I'm going to discuss. The play is Harvest, written by the Indian playwright Manjula Padmanabhan, and it is part of your American and post-colonial literature paper. Let me just try to get the presentation ready. My screen is visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah. So this is the play Harvest by Manjula Padmanabhan. As I told you, part of your uh, American and post-colonial literature paper. Uh, I guess most of the authors whom you have in that paper, especially in the American literature section, are familiar to you, right? But I'm sure the name of Manjula Padmanabhan is not such a familiar one, right? That is precisely because of many reasons. In the first place, we think of we are not very familiar with many women among the playwrights. The field of drama has always been predominated by men, I should say, from the very beginning, from the age of Greek drama to right down to the Elizabethan age in English literature, the age of Shakespeare and Marlowe, and restoration comedy down the ages to right down to the 20th century, and the various experimental theatre movements like the theatre of the absurd and the kitchen sink drama and all those plays, whether it is Ibsen, whether it is Bernard Shaw. Most of the major figures have always been men, number one. Secondly, the plays, the major plays largely have always focused on the lives of men as well. It is almost as if it is the conflict in the minds of these great heroes that is worth discussing. It could be an Oedipus Rex, it could be a Mahabharata. I mean, it could be that's of course an epic, but it could be a Shakespearean play like King Lear or Hamlet or Macbeth. It's always the protagonist who's always a male, whose problems are considered fit for discussion or considered fit for presentation as part of a major play. And the entry of women, needless to say, has been late on the stage as writers, as the characters, the protagonists, and also as the cast. We know that when the Shakespeare, when he wrote his plays, even the female roles were actually done by the young boys. So the stage has largely been a taboo space for women, just as the in the field of films we talk about the lack of women directors, especially during the early years. Now, the scene is changing both in theatre and in the field of films, and we have more and more women making an entry, and the difference is quite palpable. It is evidently out there for us to see. When a woman presents her side of the picture, it is a different story altogether, and we need to have more and more women in these public spaces like the theatre, like the playwriting scene, like the movie industry, and so on, to set right the imbalance that has been part and parcel of such public performances down the ages. So it is in that context that we need to remember or to study a play like Harvest, a play written by uh, a playwright, a woman playwright who has actually contributed much. She has been active in the theatre circuit. But again, she has been overshadowed by the likes of Mahesh Dattani and Tendulkar and so on. Among the playwrights, the male playwrights, even in the 20th and the 21st century, we have the women playwrights being overshadowed by the male playwrights. But that does not take away from the fact that when we discuss post-colonial literature, I think a play like Harvest has a significant place. So I have just put a random picture there for your view to introduce you to the play Harvest. Naturally, it goes without saying that when you come across a title like Harvest, there is definitely some kind of image that comes up in our mind. I'm sure it is something to do with cultivation, something to do with harvesting in fields, isn't that so? The crops. That is how we use the word harvest generally. But in this play, that is not the harvest that we are talking about. We are, in fact, talking about, I'll show you the next slide. Yeah, this is Manjula Padmanabhan, the playwright for you. The play is Harvest. One look at the cover and you know that it is definitely not like the cliched meaning of harvest or the conventional, the traditional meaning of harvest. The kind of association that we would give to the word harvest is definitely not what is depicted there. On the other hand, it is a play that deals with the harvesting of organs. It is all about the organ trade. At the same time, it is much more than about the organ trade. In fact, she uses the harvesting of organs, body organs, as a metaphor for larger topics of discussion. So that is what Harvest is all about. As I told you, it is not about the conventional harvest. It is a play that has been described as a futuristic play because it is set in the future. We'll discuss that point. As a science fiction, as a play that is set in the world of science fiction. It's a field that Manjula Padmanabhan has always been associated with. Apart from being a playwright, she is a cartoonist and also a short story writer. And most of her short stories are noted for their futuristic elements. There's a great deal of give and take with the field of science fiction. Futuristic, set in the future, set in the world of new gadgets and new technology and so on. She is a playwright who has constantly kept herself up to date with the latest developments in the field of science and technology and incorporated that into her literary works. It has also been called a post-colonial play because, at the very outset, the playwright introduces this play as one that involves two sets of characters. You have the buyers and the sellers. The buyers are, of course, the ones who buy the organs, and the sellers, the ones who donate. But there is a kind of division there. Why do the buyers always come from certain regions of the world? Why are the buyers always from another region of the world? This is a question that we will be asking during the course of the play, and you can definitely see the divide between the colonizer and the native, between the first world and the third world, the rich first world versus the poor third world. So that is why it's been called a post-colonial and sometimes a neo-imperial or neo-colonial, because the old age of colonization, the old age of imperialism is gone. But still you have a new kind of imperialism that has emerged in a world that is so out and out capitalist. And the rich first world continues to have a powerful domination over the poor third world. So that kind of relationship is also something that the play foregrounds. In fact, this play, I'll tell you about the first. This play was, it made news in the year 1997 when it was written, because it walked away with the first prize. It was a prize established by the Onassis Foundation, and they had announced or they had invited entries from playwrights, invited plays as entries, which dealt with challenges that human beings are faced with at the threshold of the new millennium. 1997 is when it was first published. It was sent for this, and it was the time of, in 2 years' time, the new millennium would emerge, and they wanted, this foundation wanted plays that dealt with the major challenges that people faced around that time. And this division, this capitalist division between the first world and the third world, between the inequalities of power that is generated by capital, that is definitely one of the major challenges. And that is why it's been called the post-colonial or even a neo-colonial or neo-imperialist play. It has also been called a feminist play. Why? Not just because it's written by a woman, but also because it foregrounds some important feminist issues. And you have a character named Jaya here, who plays a very significant role, who in fact rewrites the norms set down by the society in which she lives. So that is, what feminist theatre is all about. We should be aware of the powerful feminist movement in the Western countries, which emerged sometime during the 60s and 70s. It was a movement that was powered by both the feminist movement and the experiments in the world of theatre. After the, the experiments like the theatre of the absurd, then the kitchen sink drama, and all those postmodern techniques entering into the field of the theatre, and alongside that, the tempo that the feminist movement was also gaining by the time it reached the third wave. The first wave and the second wave dealt with enfranchisement and with issues of identity and so on. You can now come to the third wave, and the feminist theatre movement of the 1960s and 70s in countries of Europe, in America, and in some other parts of the world. It's a very significant movement. And feminist theatre sought to rewrite all the norms of the patriarchal Western theatre. The patriarchal Western theatre, as I told you, was always about a male protagonist. You would have the issues of men being discussed. Everything would be presented by a male playwright from the perspective of the male protagonist. So this feminist theatre rewrote all that. It changed everything. It brought in more and more women into the cast. Most of the feminist plays, written by people like Carol Churchill and Megan Terry, these are some of the major feminist playwrights of the 1970s. They included an all-female cast. The plays would only have women. It's not that they were glorifying women, not at all. But situations, real-life situations were presented from the perspective of the women. And you would have a lot of many techniques, new techniques, like a lot of fluidity, a lot of anti-realist. It's against all the conventions of early play. So in language, in style, in presentation, in characterization, in the techniques used, at every stage, feminist theatre sought to change the status quo, change whatever had been set down as the norm. ഇതാണ് തിയേറ്റർ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആ ഒരു എല്ലാ നോംസും മാറ്റി ഫെമിനിസ്റ്റ് തിയേറ്റർ. And you can see very much the same kind of situation in this play as well. It's a feminist play. Therefore, we can definitely consider it as part of the feminist theatre movement. And finally, another word that has been constantly associated with the play is a dystopian play. It's been considered a dystopian play. I'm sure you're familiar with the word dystopian. Dystopia is a word that is considered as the opposite of utopia. Utopia is, of course, that ideal land that had been created by Sir Thomas More. Before I'll come to that slide. But what you have here is a world that is just the opposite of the ideal. We'll come to the dystopian features of this play. But just to introduce you to Manjula Padmanabhan, who's even now, very active in literary and cultural circles. She actually came to the limelight with a cartoon figure that she contributed to a series called Double Talk. I think it was in Hindustan Times or so that she, it was a daily feature from right from the year 1982. It's been even now Suki, her name, the name of that cartoon character is Suki. Again, like theatre, like the world of films, cartooning is also something that we normally associate as think of as a male space. Isn't that so? We do not have many famous women cartoonists. If I ask you to mention the names of famous cartoonists, I'm sure you can only come up with the names of male cartoonists. Isn't that so? There are very few women out there, but Manjula Padmanabhan definitely did contribute, and she continues to through the character of Suki. And Suki is somebody who, she's a feminist in the sense that she's not an out and out activist, but through the observations that she makes, through the experiences that Suki encounters in her ordinary life. She is a person who lives in a city like Delhi, and through that you have Manjula Padmanabhan alerting us to various feminist issues, problems faced by women, and how society always adopts a double standard when it comes to adopts double standards when it comes to women and so on. So that is about Suki. Apart from that, of course, as I told you, she's made quite a mark as a short story writer, particularly of science fiction, in all of which again she foregrounds the woman's point of view. And then she's also written other plays, but even today the play Harvest, I think, remains the most talked about play. This would be the kind of setting that you would have for Harvest. As I know, from one look at it and you know that it's a kind of futuristic play. As I told you, it does not look like a traditional theatre at all. She, as part of her convention, of her drive to rewrite the conventions of traditional theatre, you have her bringing in futuristic elements. So this would be a typical scene of the play. We'll come to the characters. And the play, when it was published in 1997, initially it made waves because it just won this prize. Like Arundhati Roy made waves with her God of Small Things. Not just because of the different way in which the play was, the novel was written, but also because it won that, the major prize, the Booker Prize, which came with a big prize money. There was a great deal of controversy surrounding that. In a similar manner, the Onassis Foundation, it's a Greek foundation, and Aristotle Onassis. It was in memory of him that the foundation came up, and they announced these on Onassis cultural prizes. And among the many entries, this play won the first prize, and it was big news then. And soon after that, it was made into a movie as well by Govind Nihalani. Govind Nihalani is a major Indian filmmaker. He's made very important movies like Ardha Satya and so on. But Deham, unfortunately, did not make much of an impact. I think it was too futuristic for audiences in India, even though it won some major awards in some of the film festivals abroad. In India, it never made. I was trying to get a copy of this movie. I could not. I do not know if it is available. Deham with Kitu Gidwani. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She appears in some of the advertisements, but a person who's very active in the theatre field and in modelling. She was the one who acted the role of Jaya in the play Deham. And that title, I think, draws attention to the fact that the harvesting that happens here is the harvesting of human organs. Anyway, as I told you, it was set in Bombay of 2010. When it was published in 1997, that was futuristic enough. Today, we have crossed the year 2010 and we are 10 years away from that. But at the time that the play was written, it was indeed futuristic. But even though it is in the past now, what happens in the play is not only contemporary but can also be considered as futuristic. And we can keep, even if it's staged today, I think it would create a powerful impact as a futuristic play. Yeah, so this is the kind of setting in which the play is set. It's a chawl. Chawl is a Hindi or a Maharashtrian word, I think, which refers to this kind of a place where you do not have, or where you have many houses clubbed together in a kind of block like this. And it's about, as the play tells us, also preface to the play tells us, there are about 40 families living in this crowded chawl, and each apartment or each house in this chawl is also a tiny one. It's just a one room apartment that the people here live in. And the whole, I mean, apart from that one room, they have nothing else. Everything is in there, their bedroom, their kitchen, and all that, you know. And the only toilet facility that this entire chawl has is just, it has just one toilet somewhere in the ground or in the compound. You know, that is a significant part of the play. That's why I'm making a special mention of that. Anyway, it is set in this very cramped and congested place where you have 40 families living together, and each family has only a one room apartment. So that is the setting of the play. The characters now, as I told you, the characters have been divided into three sets. There are, in the preface to the play, if you can get a copy of the play which we have in the library, you can see how the characters are divided into three categories. On the one hand, you have the sellers, then you have the receivers, and then the guards and agents. And the playwright introduces, you know, even says this at the beginning. She has set this with characters that, you know, among the sellers, you have people who are Indian, and the receivers here happen to be Americans. You know, they obviously belong to two different races and two different communities and classes. She says you can put the sellers and receivers as, or you can add anyone as the sellers and the receivers. If this play is staged anywhere in the world, the sellers need not necessarily be Indians and the receivers need not necessarily be Americans, but the difference between them should be very evident. So you could have a group of Japanese or you could have a group of, let us say, people from Cambodia among the sellers, and you could have some others, the Chinese maybe, as the receivers. You could have Europeans versus Asians. You could have the North Americans versus the South Americans. Whatever, the division between the sellers and the receivers has to be very clearly highlighted. They should belong to different categories in the sense of race and also in the sense of class. So they should belong to different races, and one should be seen as conventionally the better race, better in inverted commas. They should definitely be seen as belonging to two classes. So one category, the receivers, should be seen as the richer people, and the sellers naturally the poorer people. And then you have the guards and agents. She specifically highlights this fact. The guards and agents always look like the sellers, but you can see that they are acting on behalf of the receivers. Okay, even though they look like, when you look at them physically, they appear to be like the sellers, but they have been employed by the receivers, and therefore they are acting on behalf of the receivers. And then you have two characters, I mean, we'll come to the last two characters there. Among the sellers, you have a person named Om Prakash. He is a young man. In the play, he is only about 21 years old, and he is a young man who has lost his job. He is working in a bank or something, but the machines have taken over. You know, in a world, in that system which has got so rapidly computerized, the labor of people like him was considered insignificant, and he was laid off. He was, you know, he lost his job like many other young men. That is Om Prakash. Then you have his wife, Jaya. She's about 19 years, a young woman named Jaya. Then you have Ma. Ma does not have a name, she's just referred to as Ma. And one of the receivers comes and calls her Mrs. Prakash, Mrs. Om Prakash. She is only, she's referred to as Ma. And then Om Prakash's brother, Jitu. Jitu is like a gigolo, a male prostitute, okay? And the rest of the house, the family members do not want much to do with Jitu. I'll tell you the reason for that also. Then the receivers, we have Ginny. Ginny is a very beautiful white girl, young woman. Her full name is Virginia. She's a blonde. She's very attractive. We see Ginny only as an image. I'll show you how when the play begins you have the installation of a contact module. It would be something like a big TV screen, that comes right into the center of their house, and we see Ginny's face being flashed on that. Then later in the last part of the play we will see Virgil, the American buyer, Virgil. The connection between Ginny or Virginia and Virgil will be highlighted at the end of the play. Then you have the guards and agents. The guards belong to a company called Interplanta Services Incorporated. Now Om Prakash has got a job, a new job with that company. That is why the guards come there. And then you have an old woman named Bidyut Bai, who's a neighbor and who is very, very sick, and you have Ma taking pity on her and allowing Bidyut Bai to do something in their apartment. And then you have the little children, the urchins, the street children, who are very curious to know what is happening whenever the guards and agents come. So this would be the cast, the sellers, the receivers, the guards and agents. So this is the kind of setting that you have in the play. Yeah, this is how the play opens. You have, as I told you, this one room apartment in this crowded Bombay chawl, and you have Jaya and Ma. And the play opens with them waiting for the arrival of Om Prakash. They are both very, very anxious. Ever since he lost his job in the bank, when the bank got computerized, he has been walking in and out of interviews, but he has not been successful. And on this particular day, these people are likewise waiting for his return after the interview. And you can see how they are clothed, just take a look at the house, very soon this whole scene is going to change. Take a look at their clothes, take a look at their appearance and so on. Very traditional, what you would expect in a poor Indian household, living in this small little room. And then comes the news, Om Prakash returns, and he comes with the news that he has been appointed by Interplanta Services. But there doesn't seem to be much happiness on his face. In fact, there is more of anxiety. And he says, come on, we have to get ready very soon. The agents will come from Interplanta Services to set the domestic unit in order. The domestic unit refers to his own family and his own house, but he's talking about it in a very in a different way altogether. And then he tells his mother and Jaya about the kind of interview that the company conducted, as at the end of which he was selected. You realize that it was a very strange interview. It is not like you sitting in front of a panel and then answering questions or writing a test or anything. These people were just blindfolded and taken into some strange place where they were, sanitized first of all. We live in the age of sanitization now. In a similar manner, these people had to remove their clothes. They had to be given, they just stood there with their eyes closed, and then they were given a hot bath, from all sides. Hot showers started functioning, and these people were drenched in a hot water bath. Soon after that, they were given a cold shower, finally some solution, and ultimately, in a very clean and sanitized way, they were just taken to some place. They are not aware where they are being taken, and they had to just fill in a few forms, and finally he was selected. They just told him, you have been selected. You can go home now. We will come and set up the domestic unit very soon. So he's just brought a packet after the interview. It's all very strange. He does not know. He has no say at all in the whole matter. That is what we realize. And then soon after that, you have the people coming, the agents, who dress in a very ridiculous manner with very funny gadgets. They come in with gadgets. They are the agents on behalf of Interplantar Services Incorporated. Now, just like the name indicates, it seems to be a corporate multinational company which has taken over, which has decided to take over the unit. It's very much like a multinational company, like for example, Apple or Amazon coming over and taking over everything in the local market. Amazon has rendered so many little shops futile or useless, jobless, just as the big industries, the big multinational corporations, so many of them have wiped away the presence of local indigenous companies. Can think of anything from little pencils, soaps to cars, computers, phones, anything and everything. You have the total takeover by these multinational companies. And in a microcosmic form, you see that happening in Om Prakash's house. These people come and change the entire house. They take away the old furniture, and in its place, they install new flashy things, steel-like things with a chrome finish and so on. And they don't want these people to do any cooking at all. They say the buyers will be infected if you are made to eat these kind of things. And so they just give them pellets. They should not do any cooking at all. Food is something that is very, very integral. അത് നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു ട്രഡിഷൻ്റെ ഭാഗമാണ്. ആ ട്രഡിഷനെ തന്നെയാണ് ഇവർ മാറ്റുന്നത്. ഇനി നിങ്ങൾ പഴയ രീതിയിൽ കുക്ക് ചെയ്യാൻ പാടില്ല. You should not be eating that kind of food. You should not be speaking that kind of language. You should not be doing anything, dressing up in this old manner. Sari onnu udukkan padilla. They are given track suits like things and all that. The kitchen has been totally overhauled and they are given pellets. No more cooking. You will only eat this pellet. The pellet is something that will fill them. Or tablet madriyanu. Eat that and you're done for the day. നമുക്ക് നല്ല സൗകര്യമായിരിക്കും അങ്ങനത്തെയൊക്കെ കിട്ടുവാണെങ്കിൽ, because we don't need to do any cooking. പക്ഷേ എത്ര ദിവസം, how long will you be satisfied with that kind of thing? Anyway, so this is where you can see the way in which the play is often considered as a post-colonial play, in the way that the colonizer comes in, wipes away every trace of the native tradition, native culture, whether it is Africa, whether it is India, and how that colonial hangover hangs heavy. Independence ne shesham, we continue to think of that culture as the superior culture, and that is what these people are made to believe. Now that is not all. They have even changed their relationship, because in the form that Om Prakash filled during the interview, he was told that this job is only for young men, young unmarried men, and therefore he wrote in that form that Jaya was his sister, that he is an unmarried man and Jaya sister. Now he says, when the agents come, don't tell anyone that you are my wife, you have to act as my sister. So look at the way in which their whole life, their equations, their relationships, their everything is changed. They have no say in their own lives now. It's in a world of algorithms and artificial intelligence. We know how everything is now being done by machines. You have this big systems out there which do everything for us. നമ്മളുടെ thinking പോലും അവരാ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. What you should buy is being dictated by the algorithms of a system which knows what you like. And that is why in your phone, in your computer, in your mailbox, you will have certain things being suggested to you, giving you suggestions. So your thinking is also being done by someone else. So that is how it becomes a futuristic play where man is steadily becoming redundant മാൻ്റെ തിങ്കിങ് മുഴുവൻ മെഷീൻസ് എടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. In a world that is being taken over by robots, you have more and more robotic interventions in your life. Artificial intelligence coming into your life in a big way. നമ്മളൊരു കാര്യം ചിന്തിച്ചാൽ പോലും very often your phone will predict to you, why don't you buy this എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. Isn't that so? We are constantly under a kind of surveillance by this artificial intelligence. That is what happens. Here also they have got to lie now, and very soon these people will come and install something like a contact module ennaanu parayunnu. You can see in the picture on the left there, that screen, and you can see the image of Ginny who comes and looks at these people. She's far away, but through the contact module she can see everything that is happening in this place, and she keeps telling them, do this and do that and so on. From this moment onwards, it is Ginny who controls their life. Now these people do not know everything what they are doing even when they are not in front of the module. ഈ അവർ ഉറങ്ങുന്ന സമയത്ത് പോലും അവരെന്തായിരുന്നു ചെയ്യുന്നത് എന്ന് ജിനിക്ക് അറിയാം. Ginny, that is the power that this contact module gives to the receivers. The Interplantar Services is nothing but a company that works on behalf of people like Virginia, who can make people sign a contract. A contract in the pragaram, at any point of time they want, they can take organs from the bodies of people like Om Prakash. They have to sell it. Adina avarku inganeyulla returns okke undav. They have no say. When the agents come and install the contact module, Ma and Jaya, they especially Jaya, she keeps protesting, what are you doing, don't do this ennokka parayunna samayathum they just do not listen to her. Om Prakash is just silent, ayalkonnum parayanilla, but they keep saying this, do that, any questions ennu parayunna samayathu, when Jaya is about to ask a question, they just do not listen to that question, they just pass on to the next set of instructions. And that is why the arrival of the contact module has been considered to be very much like the concept of the panopticon. Foucault and other critics have talked about the surveillance measures that are so much part of our life today. The panopticon, he talks about the panopticon in the context of a jail, where the prisoners, who are put inside the jail are being surveilled upon. അവർ എന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്ന് ആ watch tower, the panopticon is like a watch tower, panopticon, it can see all around. അതിൻ്റെ vision അങ്ങനെയാണ്. But the prisoners cannot see who is looking at them when they are being looked at. അതിൻ്റെ vision ഒരു one-sided vision ആണ്. It has the power to control the movement of the prisoners. ആ ഒരു image Foucault use ചെയ്യുന്നത് to talk about the way in which our life is being constantly surveilled upon, is being constantly monitored. നമ്മൾ അറിയാതെ തന്നെ നമ്മളുടെ ഓരോ മൂവ്മെൻറ്റും monitored ആണ്, and we do not have the kind of freedom we think that we have. Somebody out there knows what you are eating, what you are thinking, what you are posting in your Instagram, what you are writing in your Facebook. ഇതെല്ലാം surveillance ചെയ്യുന്ന. This is why I'm sure you can think of a novel like 1984. George Orwell's a famous novel, 1984. He wrote it in 1948 and he predicted the future. 1984 ആവുന്ന സമയത്തേക്കും ലോകം ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ ആയിരിക്കും. And in that world, 1984, അതൊരു classic dystopian നോവലാണ്. In the 1948 novel written by George Orwell, he talks about the year 1984. ഇന്ന് 1984 ഒക്കെ എവിടെയോ ബാക്കിലാണ്, but at that time it was a futuristic novel. And അതിൽ ഒരു major presence is that of Big Brother. It's like നമ്മൾ ഇന്ന് നമ്മളുടെ closed circuit cameras പോലെയാണ്. The camera is, you don't know what is being monitored. എവിടെയൊക്കെ CCTV വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. നിങ്ങളൊരു ടൗണിൽ പോകുന്ന സമയത്ത് നിങ്ങളുടെ images are being taken by unknown cameras. It is said that in the big metropolises like London and New York and so on, each day നമ്മളുടെ ഒരു ജീവിതത്തിൽ ഒരു ദിവസം about 3,000 to 4,000 images are being taken by these CCTVs. അത് അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ലോകത്തിലാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇന്ന് ജീവിക്കുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് ദാറ്റ് ഫ്യൂച്ചറിസ്റ്റിക് എലിമെൻറ്റ് ഈസ് so well highlighted by Manjula Padmanabhan in this play, where she talks about the way we do not have the kind of freedom we thought we had, and we are being constantly surveilled upon. നമ്മൾ തന്നെ ഉണ്ടാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു സിസ്റ്റമാണ് which deprives us of our freedom. So അങ്ങനെ ഒരു പെനോപ്റ്റിക്കോൺ ലൈക്ക് തിങ് ആണ് ഈ റൂമിൽ വരുന്നത് through the contact module. And it's interesting to note, like when Ma sees it, ആദ്യം അവർക്ക് വലിയ എതിർപ്പായിരുന്നു, ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു സാധനമൊന്നും ഇവിടെ വെക്കാൻ പാടില്ല. You know that the space is so small. അവരുടെ വീട്ടിൽ ഇത്ര കുറച്ച് സ്ഥലമേ ഉള്ളൂ. In between that, they are now going to place this contact module. It takes up a majority of the space. And initially they had protest, but the moment she sees Ginny, Ma says, oh, how beautiful, she looks like an angel എന്നാണ്. അവർ അതിനു മുമ്പ് ചോദിച്ചു, don't they have enough people of their own? ഈ ഓർഗൻസ് കോൺട്രിബ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യാനാണെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ സമയത്ത് അവരെന്തിനാ നമ്മളുടെ ഓർഗൻസ് എടുക്കുന്നത്? don't they have their own people? But ഓം പ്രകാശിനോട് പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നത് എന്താ? they do not have people to spare. whereas നമ്മൾക്ക് ഇന്ത്യയിലൊക്കെ പോപ്പുലേഷൻ ഇങ്ങനെ എക്സ്പ്ലോസീവ്ലി കൂടുന്ന സമയത്ത് you have enough and more numbers to spare. നമ്മളുടെ ജീവൻ്റെ വില അത്രയേ ഉള്ളൂ. the rich powerful people control our lives and do not consider our life as worthy at all, which is why we know about the rubbish. അവരുടെയൊക്കെ rubbish, they have a lot of garbage. ഈ garbage എവിടെയാണ് പോകുന്നത്? ആ garbage മുഴുവൻ നമ്മളുടെയൊക്കെ രാജ്യത്തും നമ്മളുടെയൊക്കെ കടലിൽ കൊണ്ടുപോയിട്ടാണ് അവർ ഒഴുക്കുന്നത്. that is why our lives continue to become miserable. So in so many ways the play refers to what is happening in the world today. So that is the panopticon, adinte oru symbolic significance of the contact module. Yeah, and then the installation of the contact module, idokke pala stages lum, as I told you, many people would have performed. Anganeyulla rendu moonu pictures aanu njan eduthathu. You can imagine anyone else at all as these characters. Now the third picture la ningal kaanunnathu is Jeetu. Jeetu is Om Prakash's younger brother. Now, in the formula, Om Prakash has not even mentioned Jeetu, because Jeetu, he's like a bohemian, or a like a rebel. He lives a different life altogether. So he's dirty, and his hair is full of lice and so on. They think that if they know, Om Prakashinte vicharam idana, and Ma also falls into that trap. If Ginny should know that there is a man called Jeetu in this house, she will not accept our organs, because every time she comes and she says, you must keep smiling, only then will I get good organs. And she wants everything to be spick and span and clean. So they decide how life is to be lived here. It's just like the colonizer coming and or African countries like India, they would wipe away every sign of the local tradition. Ividuthe forms of worship, festivals, all that they considered as barbarian. Adu barbarian. Instead of that, come and worship in our house of worship. Come and study what we teach you. They rewrote the textbooks for us. They decided what we should study in. That is why we are sitting here and discussing a play written in English. English is also a colonial legacy. Anyway, adokke namalku chindikam. But Jeetu, something interesting about Jeetu is the fact, as the play progresses, we realize that Jaya and Jeetu in fact share a very intimate relationship. This scene happens, the third picture lolla, that scene happens on the terrace of that apartment. That is where they meet. Inside the house, Jeetu is not even allowed to come inside the house, and he spends all his nights on that terrace. And Jaya visits him there. We realize that it's an intimate physical relationship, the kind of relationship that she does not have with her useless husband Om Prakash, she has with Jeetu. They live like man and wife, a proper physical sexual relationship aanu അവർ തമ്മിലുള്ളത്, which also becomes significant in the later part of the play. So ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു സിറ്റുവേഷനിൽ ഫൈനലി the day comes when, life has changed altogether. Jaya is dressed in a different way, Ma is dressed in a different way, and now the agents, the others, the guards and agents, they come, guards are varunathu. Why? To take Om Prakash away, organ donation. And Om Prakash is scared. But what happens is that strangely, ആ സമയത്ത് Jeetu, Jaya had given Jeetu a proper wash and all that, and he was brought into the house. Contact module കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല എന്നാണ് ഇവർ വിചാരിക്കുന്നത്, but the contact module had seen it, and when the guards came, they took away not Om Prakash but Jeetu. Jeetu keeps protesting, no, you've got the wrong man എന്നൊക്കെ. പക്ഷേ he is forcefully taken away. എന്നിട്ട് കുറേ ദിവസം കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് വരുന്നത്. By this time we are reaching the second act of the play. He is brought back after many days, we do not know, it appears to be after many days, with his eyes bandaged. അപ്പം when he comes back, Jaya is shocked. Ma is not at all shocked. Ma is now fully a part of this new life. Very happily, she is ordering things on TV, and now she has got a new television. Adinte picture njan kanikam. It is called a super deluxe couch, television screen that comes along with a couch. She just has to sit in that couch and everything will be done for her. Avarude bhakshanam, avarude ellam oonum orakkum ellam adile cheydha madi. She can just sit and watch TV. She's become a total victim of this new culture. She's lost her individuality altogether, which is why she's not at all bothered when her young son is brought in blinded. Jayakkana adu vesham thonunnu. But when he is brought in blinded, we would think that he is sad. No, he is not sad. Why is he not sad? Because when he looks at the contact module, he realizes that he can see Ginny there, and that is enough for him. Now, his eyes have been taken. That has been taken over by Ginny, interplantar services kondu poyittundu. But in place of that, you have an artificial vision, and through that he can see. Or artificial, like a simulation madri, images are being projected into his mind, and he is so happy with that. Again, how you become a total victim of this kind of superficial culture, this kind of that, adine endha parayuna, simulacra എന്നാണ് a famous critic called Baudrillard അതിനെ കുറിച്ച് പറഞ്ഞ. I guess you would have probably heard. Anyway, Baudrillard is a French critic who talks about the way in which we are so fascinated by this simulacra, which fascinates us. We do not, it's like an image. നമ്മൾ അതിൽ വീണു പോവാണ്. We do not think beyond the image. We are fascinated by that, and our lives are molded according to that. ഒരു മാസ്മരികത മാതിരി. And that is what has happened to Jeetu. And he is happy that he has lost his eyes, and now he is eager. Any അടുത്ത് എന്നെ എപ്പോഴാണ് കൊണ്ടുപോകുക? Because if his stomach is taken away, probably something new will be given to him. If his heart is taken away, some other thing will be given to him. എങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഒരു, that is why it becomes a very satiric portrayal also. ഒരു dystopian satire എന്ന് തന്നെയാണ് പറയുന്നത്. നമ്മൾ ജീവിതം, we want to protect it, but here they want their organs to be taken away. And പേടിച്ചിരുന്ന Om Prakash also, you can see him sitting there like a useless fellow. Now, whenever the guards come, he says, you got the wrong man, you should be taking me, take me എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ, he is eager to be taken away. But they finally continue to take only നമ്മളുടെ Jeetu തന്നെയാണ്. And very soon, each time the curtain opens, you can find Om Prakash becoming smaller and smaller. He's sitting in a like fetal position എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്, like going back to the womb madri. Ultimately, there comes a point of time when we don't see him altogether. He has disappeared. And what about the others? Jeetu has been taken away. Ayalum illa. Now Ma, as I told you, Ma has ordered for herself something like this, a super deluxe couch, and it is fitted with everything that she needs. അവർ അതിൽ ഇരുന്ന് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പിന്നെ പുറത്ത് പോകേണ്ട കാര്യമില്ല. And very interestingly, it is being compared to this one. On the right side, you can see King Tutankhamun's സാർക്കോഫേഗസ് എന്ന് ഏൻഷ്യൻ്റ് ഈജിപ്ഷ്യൻ കൾച്ചറിലുള്ള ഒരു ഇതായിരുന്നു. ആഫ്റ്റർ ഡെത്ത് പീപ്പിൾ ദ ഹോൾ ബോഡി വുഡ് ബി മമ്മിഫിക്കേഷൻ മാതിരി. പക്ഷേ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻറ്റ് പീപ്പിൾ ലൈക്ക് ദ കിങ്സ് വുഡ് ബി, ആ മമ്മി വുഡ് ബി പ്ലേസ്ഡ് ഇൻസൈഡ് ദ സാർക്കോഫേഗസ്. അതിങ്ങനെ ഒരു യുവർ ബോഡി ഈസ് പ്ലേസ്ഡ് ഇൻ ഇറ്റ് ആൻഡ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വേണ്ട കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ അതിൽ വരും. യുവർ ഫുഡ് ഫോർ ദി ആഫ്റ്റർ ലൈഫ് ആൻഡ് ദെൻ ഇറ്റ് വുഡ് ബി ക്ലോസ്ഡ്, ദ ലിഡ് വുഡ് ബി ക്ലോസ്ഡ്. അതാണ് ആ സെക്കൻഡ് ഇമേജിൽ കാണുന്നത്. ആൻഡ് അങ്ങനെ ഒരു കിങ് ടുട്ടൻഖാമൻസ് സാർക്കോഫേഗസ് മാതിരിയുള്ള ഒരു കൗച്ചിൽ മാ ബിക്കംസ് എ ടോട്ടൽ ഹാപ്പി വിക്ടിം. ഷീ ഈസ് ഡെഡ് ടു ദ വേൾഡ് നൗ. അതാണ് അതിൻ്റെയും ഒരു സിംബോളിക് സിഗ്നിഫിക്കൻസ് ഒക്കെ നിങ്ങൾ ആലോചിച്ച് നോക്കൂ. ഹൗ ഷീ ഹാസ് ബിൻ ടോട്ടലി engulfed in that world of advertisements and TV shows and that multinational culture that is projected out there. And finally, therefore, it is Jaya alone who is left in the house. And when Jaya is left in the house, when the contact module opens, she realizes that it is not Ginny. Ginnyയുടെ മുഖമല്ല അവിടെ കാണുന്നത്. Till then, they had only been seeing Ginny. Instead of that, you see a male body and a rich, നല്ല മാൾബറോ അഡ്വർടൈസ്മെൻറ്റ് മാതിരി എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്, a rich, powerful male voice also. She is surprised. What happened to Ginny എന്നാണ് ചോദിക്കുന്നത്. And then things fall into place. Slowly, she gathers information from this man. We realize that Virginia or Ginny was never there at all. She was just a computer animated wet dream. അതായത് ഒരു കമ്പ്യൂട്ടർ ഇമേജ് മാത്രമാണ്. ഷീ ഈസ് എൻ ഇമേജ് ആൻഡ് ഷീ ഹാഡ് ബിൻ ക്രിയേറ്റഡ് ജസ്റ്റ് ടു അട്രാക്ട് പീപ്പിൾ ലൈക്ക് ഓം പ്രകാശ് ആൻഡ് ജീതു. ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു ഭംഗിയുള്ള ഒരു വുമണിനെ കണ്ടാൽ they would be willing to give their bodies. So these people had been cheated into giving their bodies. They did it happily. And the real buyer there actually was this rich American man named Virgil. Ayala, he knew that if he asked for a body, not many people might be willing to give him. Appo adukondu oru computer image undaki of a beautiful blonde white woman, and that is Virginia. And now we realize that this Virgil, what he has been doing is the fact that, he's a typical gentleman of that Western world, of that first powerful, rich first world, who have, gained the knowledge to live longer. You have powerful medicines and so on, which can grant you even immortality. Madri, ningalku eniyum jeevikam. ആദ്യം ഒരു 70 years ആയിരിക്കും ആവറേജ് ഏജ്, ബട്ട് നൗ ഇറ്റ്സ് ബിക്കം 90. ബട്ട് ഇൻ ദാറ്റ് പ്രോസസ് ദേ ഹാഡ് നോട്ട് ഡെവലപ്ഡ് ദ ടെക്നീക്ക് ടു കീപ് ദെയർ ബോഡീസ് യങ്. അവർ 100 years വരെയൊക്കെ ജീവിക്കുമായിരിക്കും, ബട്ട് ദ ബോഡി വുഡ് ഏജ് ആൻഡ് ദെയർഫോർ ദേ നൗ വാണ്ടഡ് ടു ബൈ ബോഡീസ് ഫ്രോം ദ റെസ്റ്റ് ഓഫ് ദ വേൾഡ് ഇൻ വിച്ച് ദേ കുഡ് കണ്ടിന്യൂ ടു ലിവ്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ തേർഡ് വേൾഡ് കൺട്രീസിലുള്ള ജീവന് യാതൊരു വിലയുമില്ല. ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് സംതിങ് ദാറ്റ് ക്യാൻ ബി ബോട്ട് ബൈ ദ പവർഫുൾ വെൽത്ത് ദാറ്റ് ദ ഫസ്റ്റ് വേൾഡ് ഹാസ്. See the inequality, see the imbalance, see the trivialization of third world lives. And this is the fourth body that he had been looking for. അങ്ങനെയാണ്, that is how Jaya can immediately detect Jitu's body. As I told you, they've been living as man and wife, and she immediately, our body kanda samayathu, she knew, when she saw that Virgil is a man, Virgil's shabdame nammal kelkunu, we see his body, we don't see his face. Adayala valare cleverly hide cheyana, but the body is that of Jitu. And now his intention is, endana iyal udeshikkunna, why has he chosen this family? They knew all along that Om Prakash was married, that there is a woman named Jaya. They were actually looking for Jaya's body. Jituinte body kittanam, pakshe what he is more interested in now is to have a baby in Jaya's body, because he has found that എന്തോ ഒരു തരം match ഉണ്ട്. And he eugenics അല്ലെങ്കിൽ genetics experiments വെച്ചിട്ട് it has been proven that his sperm and Jaya's egg, if it is fertilized, it would create a perfect new young. അതിനു വേണ്ടിയാണ് ഇയാൾ ജയ ഈ ഫാമിലി ചൂസ് ചെയ്തത്. So ultimately they were trying to reach Jaya's body. And when these things fall into place, you have Jaya now emerging, as the strong individual that she really is. നമ്മൾ ഇതുവരെ അത് കണ്ടില്ല. She was never heard, it was always the others who were heard, but now she comes into her own. All along, Jeetu, I'm sorry, Ginny, okay, ഇവരെ Mr. Prakash, Jaya, എന്നൊക്കെയായിരുന്നു വിളിക്കുന്നത്. They could not pronounce the Indian names, but now, when she has this conversation with Virgil and she realizes that this is how things are, she puts her foot down and she says, you are not going to dictate terms and I will definitely not give you my body. And she says, she challenges him, if you want, you come here and get me in the parayunnu. And he says, I can't come there, your country is too infected, avarkonnum nammude logathilokku vanna diseases vannu pogum, they can't come to this dirty country like India ennu paraya. When the American presidents come നമ്മളുടെ ലോകത്തൊക്കെ വരുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഹോൾ ഹോട്ടൽസ്, ആ ഹോട്ടലിൽ പിന്നെ ആരും താമസിക്കില്ല. മാത്രമല്ല, ദേ ബ്രിങ് ഈവൻ ദ ഫുഡ് ഫ്രം ദേ, ഫുഡും ഡോഗ്സ്, ദേ കം വിത്ത് എ ഡോഗ് സ്ക്വാഡ് ഓൾസോ, പ്രൊട്ടക്ഷൻ. ഇവിടെ എല്ലാ സ്ഥലത്തും ബോംബുകൾ പൊട്ടിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കും, നമ്മളുടെ ഡോഗ്സ് അത്ര പവർഫുൾ അല്ല, അപ്പോൾ അവർ ഡോഗ്സ് ആയിട്ട് വരും, അവർക്ക് കഴിക്കാനുള്ള ഫുഡ് മീറ്റൊക്കെ അവരെ കൊണ്ടുവരികയാണ്. ദേ തിങ്ക് ദാറ്റ് ഇന്ത്യൻ മീറ്റ് ഈസ് ബാഡ് ആൻഡ് ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് ഹൗ ദ rich Americans come visiting. എന്നിട്ട് നമ്മൾ we roll out the red carpet welcome for whether it is Obama or എന്താണ് Clinton or Trump, ആരായാലും നമ്മൾക്ക് America is the ultimate place and we would roll out a red carpet welcome for them even though they are belittling us in this manner. That is again the power of capital. അത് തന്നെയാണ് ഇവിടെയും സംഭവിക്കുന്നത്. So now she says, she challenges him, you come down. അതായത് she's just turned the tables and now taken the upper hand. Till now you dictated the terms, now let me dictate the terms. If and then he says, no, my guards are waiting outside to come and take you. But she says, if they try to take me from here, the moment they try to open the door, I will commit suicide എന്ന് പറയാൻ. He says, oh no, നിങ്ങൾ കഴിക്കുന്ന food pellets, that contains anti-suicide drugs എന്ന്. She says, nothing is going to work, അതൊന്നും എനിക്ക് അറിയേണ്ട കാര്യമില്ല, I will make sure that they will not get my body. If they should come, she has placed the ഇതൊക്കെ ഒരു contraption ആ ഡോറിൽ നിന്ന് കെട്ടി വെച്ചിരിക്കുകയാണ്, as a result of which if they should open the door, it would immediately come and hit her and she would die. She would die എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ that is her victory. She says, they are definitely not going to get me. So she does not succumb. All the others, Om Prakash, Jeetu, Ma, they belong to the category of people who offer no resistance at all and become willing victims of this kind of inhumanization. But she alone, she is the one who stands up as the awakened native, as the rebellious native who says, you cannot dictate terms to me anymore, I will live life on my terms. And then അവസാനം അങ്ങനെയാണ് പറയുന്നത്, I will do whatever I want and if you should talk to me, come here and call me Jaya, not Jaya. Jaya as in justice എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. She says that is justice. That is how she gets her justice. Jaya as in justice. അതായത് we are not going to live life on your terms, I will decide and I will decide how you see me as well. Jaya alla Jaya. That's also a very significant way in the way she makes him pronounce her name correctly. That is how the play emerges. It has been called as a dystopian play. As I told you, a dystopia is a community that is frightening. There is nothing good about it. It is just the opposite of the ideal, opposite of the word utopia, which had been coined by Sir Thomas More in 1516 to talk about an ideal society. Now, to the large number of dystopian works. Can you mention, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് പറയാൻ പറ്റുമോ? Can you tell me the names of a few dystopian works? ഞാൻ already ഒന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു, 1984 written by George Orwell. It's an archetypal dystopian novel. In the chat box, can you write ആർക്കെങ്കിലും പറ്റുമോ? One or two other dystopian works പറയാൻ. Either switch on the mic or write in the chat box. No one? Dystopian works. Have you read Margaret Atwood? You have studied her as a poet. Yeah, very good. Grishma has written The Handmaid's Tale, I think. Yeah. Yeah, Brave New World. These are all dystopian. Very good. All three of you. Good. George Orwell, Inhuman, even Animal Farm, in a way, or a satire, but adum or a dystopia. But 1984, Fahrenheit, what was that writer's name? Kurt Vonnegut. Yeah. Clockwork Orange. Very good, Anima. Clockwork Orange. These are all dystopian novels. And to that you can add this play also. Pakshe, it does not remain as a dystopian play, even though it alerts us to the dystopia that our life can become in a world where the worth of the individual is reduced by these systems that we have built for ourselves in this world of artificial intelligence, where we cannot think for ourselves, in a world of rich poor divide, where the rich decide how the poor should live their lives. I think at the end the play actually does give us hope at various levels. You could think of it as a feminist play in which a woman claims her right over her body. In this world, we are all too familiar with the situation where it is the world which owns the female's body. She is told what she should do, how she should dress, where she should walk. Ratri ayal porthu pogan paadilla. You should have children at the age of this. You should get married. You should live this man. The society dictates to her. She is never allowed any say in her own life. Avade, a powerful woman emerges who says, I will choose, I will decide how to live life on my terms. So she gets that autonomy over herself. Adoru bhagata. On another level, you can think of it as the voice of the individual, the human voice rising against the inhumanization that is perpetrated by artificial intelligence and machines and so on. In a world that is being taken over by machines, in a world where even your thinking is being done by these systems, you raise your own voice. Aa reethiyilum ee play in the end you can see that. It's been time and again called a post-colonial work, because what you have is the empire writing back. That is how Bill Ashcroft, the post-colonial critic Bill Ashcroft, defined post-colonial literature as the empire writing back. The Empire Writes Back is the name of that book. എന്താണ് പറ്റുന്നത്? For a very long time, the imperial power established its authority over the rest of the world, and it wrote the life of the natives. Once they got independence, they began, or even before that, they began to question the norms set down by the colonizer. And they did it through their writings. That is, the empire, whoever the natives who belonged to the empire, writing back to the center, questioning the norms set down by the center, rejecting the rule of the center. So, Jaya there stands for the awakened native, and she questions, she rejects the power of the colonizer. To that extent, you can consider it as a powerful post-colonial play. And idindokke purume, you can also think of it as a play that in a dystopian way highlights the way money has this power to minimize the significance of the poor. And against that kind of dehumanizing culture, the individual rises and closes the doors on the power of capital. I think the play is open to so many levels of interpretation. I leave that to you. If you can, it would be good if you could read the play actually. We have a copy of it in the library. It may be available online also. Anyway, in your text will give you the summary of this play. Read it and yeah, think about it. Okay. So that is how harvest, you have the harvesting of the body organs, but ultimately who triumphs? We have the farmers' protest going on in India at this moment. The ones who should be harvesting are out there on the roads trying to claim their autonomy over their own lives. I think there is much for us to think about that problem, what they are protesting against, why the new farm laws, in what ways the new farm laws will affect the farmers, and how they are afraid of the fact that they are being sold to the multinational corporations. We have read essays by people like Vandana Shiva and so on, who have spoken against that corporate culture. That's exactly what we have in the situation in Delhi, in North India right now. And this play, this is the power of literature. It gives you a context in which you can think. It gives you a perspective. It gives you a framework through which you can look at the situation in the world. And it should help you to broaden your horizon and understand a situation in its entirety. Rather than looking at it from just one perspective, look at it in its entirety. Okay, I think I'll stop there. 1 hour ആയിരുന്നു ഞാൻ വിചാരിച്ചത്. Shall I stop the recording?
Yes, ma'am.
Very happy. അതാരാണ് വളരെ happily yes പറഞ്ഞത്? Okay. Right. So I'll see you later then. ഞാൻ അടുത്ത ക്ലാസ് ഉള്ള സമയത്ത് I'll put a link. And tomorrow we have an hour, അല്ലേ? Let's see. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ I will wish you happy holidays. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.